You're listening to The Pump Fake.
All right, welcome into the Pump Fake, everybody. Jarrett Bailey here with you, as always, powered by FanDuel. Recapping everything that went down in Week 13 around the NFL. Appreciate everybody for tuning in. Whether you're watching, listening, however you're taking it in, appreciate you for making the show part of your day. Most of the noteworthy happenings in Week 13 took place on Thanksgiving, so hopefully everybody had a very nice and happy Thanksgiving with their families. I'm going to touch on those after the fact. They happened, 4 or 5 days ago at this point. Everything that happened Sunday and Monday, a little bit more recent. And that's where we will start today. So if you're watching, please be sure to subscribe. If you're listening, please be sure to comment, leave a review, and all of that good podcast stuff. So let's start with Monday Night Football, the Giants and the Patriots. And another dominant win for the Patriots over an inferior opponent. And, the thing with the Patriots, they're now 11-2. They go into their Week 14 bye, a very late bye week for the Patriots. They're 11-2. They've won 10 straight. And in spite of that, in spite of the Patriots winning 10 games in a row, the only conversation that seems to be prevalent right now surrounding New England is, but look at their schedule. Look at their schedule. They've played the Titans, who are one step away from getting relegated to the UFL. They beat the Dylan Gabriel Patriots. They beat, a Giants team who's already fired their head coach. And every time Jackson Dart takes off, he does his best impression of Jeff Hardy. Now, that's all that I've heard about the Patriots is, just look at their schedule, to demean them. And, the Patriots are a very fun team when you don't have somebody annoying in your ear telling you to look at their strength of schedule. And the thing that I say to defend New England is that if they had lost to the Titans, if they had lost to the Browns, if they had lost to the Giants, it would be held against them. How can we take this team seriously? They lost to the Giants, or they lost to the Titans of all teams, or the Browns. It would be held against them if they didn't win those games. Or even if they did win them, but it was close. If they only beat the Titans by a field goal, or if they only beat the Browns by 5, or, what have you. Then the argument would be, sure, they won that game, but, look how close it was. How real is this team really? So the fact that they're winning these games can't be held against them when it would be held against them had they lost them. And it's not that they're just winning these games. They're beating the living hell out of these teams. They blew out the Titans. They blew out the Browns. They blew out the Giants. In those 3 games, they have an average margin of victory of almost 19 points, a little bit over 18 points average margin of victory. So they're averaging a 3-score win. It'd be one thing if they were barely scraping by, but they are baptizing these teams. This is a team that you got to take seriously, because they got the quarterback right in Drake May, who is riding side by side with Matthew Stafford in the MVP race, like they're Dale Earnhardt and Darrell Waltrip at Daytona, racing neck and neck to the finish. They have the most wins in the NFL. They're sitting atop the AFC. And by the way, they're 2-0 against current playoff teams. They've taken care of their business. And the 2 wins that they have against those playoff teams have both been on the road. The Patriots deserve every ounce of credit for taking care of business, beating bad teams. It's not as if they pick their schedule. And it can't be held against them that they're beating these bad teams and blowing them out when it would have been held against them if they lost to them. The Patriots are for real. Their quarterback sure as hell is for real. Mike Vrabel's a proven winner. I just don't get the argument. Oh, well, look at who they've beaten. Yeah, sure. But they've also blown those teams out. And if you look at other teams around the league who were gawking over, let's talk about the Seahawks. The Seahawks, who are, I believe, number 1 in the league in DVOA. I checked it earlier over on FTN Fantasy. Everybody's in love with the Seahawks. The Seahawks are 1-3 against playoff teams right now. Ahead of Week 14, teams that currently sit with a playoff spot, the Seahawks are 1-3 against those teams. Now, that's not me saying that the Seahawks are a bad team, but they aren't getting the same energy that New England is. When New England has more wins against current playoff teams, they have a better quarterback in Drake May and a more proven head coach in Mike Vrabel. So the fact that we're doing this, who have they beat with New England, and we're not doing it with Seattle, it just feels like there's a little bit of bias in there somewhere. And look at, other teams around the league. We just saw the Los Angeles Rams lose to the Carolina Panthers. I don't think that takes anything away from the Rams. They're still probably the best team in football. We'll get into my power rankings here in a little bit. But the Patriots absolutely deserve our respect. They're a real team. And we don't have to do this thing where we play, they only beaten this team and that team. Yeah, but they beat the Titans, 32-13. Hell, they blew out the Panthers to start this win streak and put up 40 on them. Blow out the Giants on a national stage. Beat Buffalo on the road on a national stage. Beat Tampa Bay on the road. This is a good football team. And for what it's worth, only the Patriots, Indianapolis Colts, and the Buffalo Bills have winning records against other playoff teams in the AFC. In the NFC, the only teams to have winning records against other current NFC playoff teams are the Rams and the Eagles. So that's 5 teams, and they're one of them. Absolutely a real team. We don't have to do this where we, pick apart every bit of their schedule. They're beating the hell out of teams. They deserve to be respected. Next up on the docket, I brought it up already. The Rams go on the road to Carolina, and the Panthers get to 7-6 and get a big signature win for their season. 3 turnovers by the Rams. Matthew Stafford entered this game only having thrown 2 interceptions. He throws 2 in the first half alone, and the Panthers sack Matthew Stafford, strip the ball away late in the fourth quarter. The Rams don't get the ball back, and the Panthers hold on to win. Carolina, I don't know what they are. They're not a Super Bowl threat, but no one's lining up to play this team right now. They had 2 touchdowns on 4th downs on Sunday. It's just they're a very weird team that I can't wrap my mind around. If Linsanity was a football team, it would be the Carolina Panthers. It's not going to last long. If they get into the postseason, that's a very fun story. I don't expect them to make much noise, whatever seed they are. But I have to applaud Dave Canales, the head coach there. It feels like they found the right guy. I don't know if Bryce Young's the long-term answer at quarterback, but he played well on Sunday. They're getting very good contributions from Tet McMillan, the rookie that they drafted out of Arizona. Jalen Coker played really well in this game. They got the nice backfield duo of Rico Dowdle and Chuba Hubbard. And defensively, Mike Jackson had a pick 6 in this game. Ejiro Evero's defense is playing very, above their potential right now, which is a sign of a really good coordinator getting the best out of his players. I don't know what to make of Carolina, but a very good win for a team that has been so just in the gutter over the last half decade. and longer. I mean, the 15-1 season is such an outlier for Carolina over the last 20 years. This is a team that has been very hungry for a winner. And again, I don't know how far they can take this thing, but they got a very nice win over a very good Rams team. I already said it about the Rams. I'm, kind of giving away my power rankings here a little bit. They're still the top team in the NFL to me. Had Matthew Stafford protected the ball a little bit better and not, if the Rams didn't have 2 turnovers, one of them in the red zone, one of them, I believe, on the 22, and they could have put up 42 points in this game. So not taking anything away from Carolina, just saying that this doesn't impact how I feel about the Rams. But certainly did want to highlight this game because it was every week we have at least one wild thing happen in the NFL. This was the most wild of the 1:00 slate. So good for the Carolina Panthers getting a big win. In the 4:00 slate, the national game, the Bills go on the road to Pittsburgh and just light up the Steelers. And, I talked about it already on Believe in Steelers, so I try not to, double dip too far when it goes to deep dives in the Steelers on both shows. But 249 rushing yards for the Buffalo Bills, which sets a new record at Acrisure Stadium. Josh Allen threw for a touchdown, ran for a touchdown, 76th career rushing touchdown for Josh Allen. That is now number 1 all-time for a quarterback. There's a very real chance Josh Allen gets 100 rushing touchdowns in his career. That's absurd. There's Hall of Fame running backs that don't have that many. What he is doing can't be overstated just how special of a football player he is. And the Buffalo Bills will go as far as he can take them. Only problem with that is, Buffalo, while they were very dominant in this game, they only allowed the Steelers to get 166 yards of offense. Joey Bosa had a strip sack. Christian Benford had a scoop and score and an interception. It was as dominant as you could look defensively. Offensively, they only scored 3 points in the first half. Came out in the second half, and obviously the dam broke open after the Joey Bosa strip sack. But, when it comes to the Bills, it feels very similar to what it's been in previous years. They're going to rely heavily on Josh Allen and James Cook and, a bunch of other guys. Look, when Christian Benford's on top of his game, he's a very good corner. If Joey Bosa, if they can get splash plays consistently from Joey Bosa, he leads the NFL right now in forced fumbles, then they might have something. And especially with the AFC being as open as it is, maybe this is the year that Buffalo finally breaks through. In terms of what it means for Pittsburgh, the fire Tomlin chants, booing Renegade. This fan base is ready for a change. Yes, Mike Tomlin will likely go somewhere else if the Steelers do decide to either fire him or trade him. And if he goes to the Giants, if he goes to the Titans, he'll be able to stabilize that organization and raise the floor dramatically. And that's fine. I don't know why that's always used as an argument for why the Steelers shouldn't fire Mike Tomlin. Oh, he'll go somewhere else and, he'll get a job right away. Well, that's great. I mean, I hope he does. I don't have anything against Mike as a guy. But as a coach, he's got to admit when things meet its end. And this certainly has. And that's where we are right now in terms of the Steelers. They're 6-6. They go on the road to Baltimore next week, who's also 6-6. Loser of that game, probably out of the playoff race. Very big implications there. Although both of those teams play each other in week 18. So the winner of the AFC North could be 9-8 and get in. Which, who would have thought that the AFC South could flirt with getting 3 playoff teams while the AFC North might only get 1? The NFL is crazy. Very crazy indeed. All right, we're going to take a quick break with a quick word from Whatnot. We'll be right back. This episode of The Pump Fake is brought to you by Whatnot. Guys, if you know me, you know how big of a nerd I am. That's right, Rex Ryan. Mike McDaniel isn't the only nerd boy associated with the NFL. I've given a tour of my office before on social media. It's decked out wall to wall with a lot of Batman toys, collectibles, horror stuff, Michael Myers, Art the Clown. As you see behind me in the backdrop, lots of NFL memorabilia and things of that nature. And a lot of this stuff, specifically all the DC and all the horror, a lot of that stuff was found on Whatnot. And whether you are into Batman like me, if you're a Marvel person, another DC entity, horror, pro wrestling, NFL, NBA, NHL, whatever sport tickles your fancy, I promise Whatnot has something for you. Click on the link in the description to get started today and find something for you, for somebody else. It's almost Christmas time. Maybe you want to find somebody special in your life, something that they enjoy collecting or something associated with it. Whatnot is the perfect place to go for all of your collectible needs, or again, somebody that you value in your life and their collectible wants and needs. And with it being the holiday season, this is the perfect time to get started. So head over to whatnot.com. The link is in the description below, and start sharing, shopping, and connecting. All right. Welcome back to the Pump Fake. We are brought to you by FanDuel. And we keep recapping everything that went down in Week 13. Let's start with the Thanksgiving games now as we go through the rest of the slate. The Green Bay Packers handled business against the Detroit Lions. Last year, Detroit swept the Packers. This year, Green Bay sweeps Detroit 31-24. Big game from Jordan Love as well. Christian Watson had a nice game overall. Jordan Love, 4 touchdown passes. Christian Watson, 4 catches, 80 yards, and a touchdown. Dontavian Wicks had a pair of touchdowns. Green Bay seems to be coming into their own right now. When we started the season 2 weeks in, they played really great against Detroit. They played great against Washington. We're talking about this team being a shoo-in coming out of the NFC. They hit a little bit of, dips and troughs and whatnot. Offensively, they start to struggle. Jordan Love dealt with an injury. But he's come back with a vengeance. 4 touchdowns, no picks. The Packers, 8-3-1, sitting comfortably with a playoff spot. Detroit, if the season ended today, the Lions would not hold a playoff spot. They are fighting for their playoff lives right now. And when you look at all the talent on that team, and you look at who's winning the NFC North right now, it's pretty clear that perhaps they're missing Ben Johnson calling the plays. Dan Campbell took that over from John Morton. Looked very good in the first game against Washington, but since then it's been pretty questionable. Dallas defeats Kansas City 31-28 in a game where Dallas, in a span of 4 days, defeated the Philadelphia Eagles and then defeated the Kansas City Chiefs, both teams who were represented in the Super Bowl this past February. Dak Prescott is playing at an MVP level right now, 320 yards, 2 touchdowns, and a pick on Thursday. But what CeeDee Lamb and George Pickens are doing, CeeDee Lamb, 7 catches, $112 and a touchdown. George Pickens continues to show everybody that, hey, the Steelers should not have moved on from me. And when I have a good quarterback throwing me the ball, I can make special things happen. George Pickens very well could be in line for an all-pro nod this year, whether it be first or second team. The things that he's done, very special. And now for Kansas City, again, it's incredible that Mahomes is playing at this level, and it's all for naught. Mahomes, 261 yards, 4 touchdowns, no picks, and they lost. And that tells you a lot about how that defense is playing right now, where they just can't get off the field. And Dak and the offense for Dallas took advantage of that. On top of that, the Chiefs actually got good production from their running game, 119 yards on the ground. They haven't ran the ball well all year. Overall, offensively, they played great. It was just the fact that the defense couldn't get off the field. They couldn't stop a slant to George Pickens all afternoon. And, putting Jalen Watson on an island against George Pickens, not the smartest idea. Jalen Watson's a fine corner, but they really hung him out to dry a lot on Thanksgiving, and it came back to bite him. So now Kansas City, 6-6. One more loss could be it for them. And, while we try to keep things even and fair and whatnot, For the sake of parity, I don't think anybody would be shedding a tear outside of Kansas City, Missouri, if the Chiefs did miss the postseason. It's a very real possibility right now. They have a lot to clean up, and they almost certainly have to win out if they want to get a postseason spot, because the Chargers won, the Jaguars won, the Bills won. Again, all three of those wild card teams are sitting at 8-4, 2 games ahead of the Chiefs. The Bills have the head-to-head advantage over Kansas City. Jacksonville has the head-to-head advantage over Kansas City. And depending on what happens with the Chargers and divisional standings, they could also have the advantage over Kansas City. So this is, the Chiefs have little room for error, and they've got to basically win out, or they could be looking at missing the postseason altogether. Black Friday, the Chicago Bears get another big win, gets a 9-3 on the year, probably their signature win on the year. I think there are similar questions happening, similar conversations happening surrounding the Chicago Bears, where they're sitting at 8-3, but they hadn't really had that signature win yet. They get it on the road against the defending NFC champions. They hold the Eagles to 15 points. Things in Philadelphia right now, I know that the internal conversation or debates in Philadelphia and Eagles fans has been, all right, is it Jalen Hurts that's the biggest problem, or is it Kevin Patullo? And the answer is very obviously both. Play calling hasn't been good, but there was a play in this game. Dallas Goedert is in a whole other area code down the middle of the field. Somehow Hurts doesn't see him and doesn't throw him the ball. He would have been able to crawl into the end zone for about 15 yards out, and that could have changed the outcome of the game. There was a play where he threw the ball behind Devontae Smith on an inbreaker. If he had waited a second, Jahan Dotson was breaking on a corner, had a step on the defensive back, could have been a touchdown that way. Jalen Hurts isn't playing well. Now, they also can't run the ball, and that's a problem in and of itself. Saquon Barkley only had 56 yards in this game. They only had 87 yards on the ground as a whole. Barkley was the only running back to carry the ball. They didn't give the ball to Tank Bigsby as a runner. They didn't turn the ball to any of their other running backs. Jalen Hurts had 4 carries for 31 yards. They don't have any balance. A.J. Brown had a great game. 10 catches, 132 yards, 2 touchdowns. By far his best game. But they weren't able to do anything else. And as long as these issues continue to plague Philadelphia, they're 8-4 right now, but the Dallas Cowboys are coming. And the fact that they just lost to Dallas, and then Dallas beats Kansas City on Thanksgiving, they're getting in a groove now. They got better at the deadline, bringing in Quinnen Williams, adding Logan Wilson in the middle of the defense. This is a team in Dallas that can make a little bit of a run, and they're only, a game and a half back now of the Eagles. So with all the offensive issues that the Eagles have right now, that is concerning if you are an Eagles fan or an Eagles player trying to hold on to this lead in the NFC East. All right, we're going to speed run the rest of the games here. The 49ers defeat the Browns 26-8. Pretty satisfying home start for Shedeur Sanders. Weather wasn't the best, but they couldn't get anything going offensively. He did have a touchdown pass to Harold Fannin. But on the day for Shedeur, nothing crazy. 16-25, $149 and a touchdown. Brock Purdy, touchdown pass, 168 yards. Christian McCaffrey had a touchdown as well. Brock Purdy ran one in. It was a very defensive game. Bad weather conditions, high winds. It had snowed in Cleveland the Friday prior. So a low-scoring game was expected, and that is what we got between these two teams. The 49ers are 9-4. Cleveland drops to 3-9 on the season. Jacksonville defeats Tennessee 25-3. Again, 8-4 for the Jaguars. They hold the head-to-head advantage over the Chiefs, and they continue to hold on to a playoff spot. 229 yards on the day for Trevor Lawrence. Houston gets to 7-5. Won 4 straight. They started the year 0-3. Remember that. They're now 7-5, just 1 game out of the wild card. Daniel Jones dealing with a leg injury. He has a partial break in his leg. Can't really move laterally, and it's really starting to show up. The Colts now only a game ahead of the Texans in the standings, and now Jacksonville actually takes over the lead in the AFC South. So Jacksonville at 8 wins, Indianapolis at 8 wins, Houston at 7 wins. Going to be a dogfight in that division going forward. The Dolphins beat the Saints 21-17. They're 5-7, and I got to tell you, I just don't care. Yeah, they're still going to be in the hunt graphic. Miami's not a team making the playoffs, y'all. That's great. They were in a much worse spot a month ago. They've rattled off a few wins. The season will look a lot more respectable, especially if they can end it on a high note. Looks like Mike McDaniel's going to be sticking around. But at 5-7, you barely squeak by the Saints. I'm not taking you seriously. The Jets win on a field goal by Nick Folk at the gun, 56 yards over the Atlanta Falcons. I'm very glad that I didn't pick the Falcons to win the NFC South. The Buccaneers end their losing streak and beat the Arizona Cardinals 20-17. They get to 7-5 on the year. Big return game for Bucky Irving, who had missed several games. He returns to the lineup, 17 carries, 61 yards, and a touchdown. And then through the air, Bucky Irving, 2 catches, 20 yards. So nice return to the lineup for Bucky Irving. Tampa Bay 7-5. They remain a half game ahead of the Carolina Panthers, who at 7 wins are kind of knocking on the door right behind them. Minnesota, Seattle. Max Brosmer started this game and threw 4 interceptions. Seattle gets a 26-0 shutout. Max Brosmer made J.J. McCarthy look like Steve Young in this game. I'm very glad that wasn't the, I saw the highlights on Red Zone on the other TV. That was a brutal watch. Speaking of brutal watches, Max Crosby shoved Justin Herbert to the ground. He's very much just frustrated about being a Las Vegas Raider. Chargers beat the Raiders pretty handily, 31-14. Sunday night got capped off with a fun game between the Broncos and the Commanders. Marcus Mariota played admirably in relief of Jaden Daniels, but Bo Nix and the Broncos did enough to get the win in overtime. Nick Bonino batting down what would have been a touchdown pass from Marcus Mariota in the flat to, I believe, Chris Rodriguez, who had a step on his defender. Bo Nix on the night, 29-45, 321, a touchdown and an interception. The Broncos at 10-2 are the number 2 seed in the AFC. That is every game from week 13, which now takes us to the power rankings ahead of week 14. So let's get those pulled up real quick if I can. And here we go. So we'll start at number 1. The Rams stay put, as do the New England Patriots. I know that the Rams lost, but nothing that I saw changed how I felt about them. Uncharacteristic turnovers. They're not going to win every game. Still feel like they're the best team in the NFL. The Patriots continue to beat up bad teams. But that's what you're supposed to do if you're a good team. You're supposed to beat up the bad teams, and they continue to do that. Green Bay moves up considerably. Big win on the road on Thanksgiving over Detroit, 8-3-1. Jordan Love looks really good. Christian Watson, Dontavian Wicks had big games. That offense looks like it's starting to really come into its own. Buffalo gets a win over Pittsburgh, dominating on defense. They move up 1 spot. The Seahawks also move up 1 spot after shutting out the Vikings. Philadelphia falls down 3 after losing to the Bears at home. That offense is a real concern, as is the Lions offense. With all that talent, they shouldn't struggle as much as they do. I understand, they put up 24 in this game. But at 7-5, they're on the outside looking in as it stands. The Cowboys are the biggest jumpers this week. You beat the Eagles and Chiefs in a span of 4 days. You're going to jump up the power rankings. They just jump up 9 spots from 17 to 8. This is a real team. Dak Prescott's an MVP candidate. George Pickens and CeeDee Lamb are arguably the best receiving duo in the NFL right now. Javonte Williams has had a good year. And defensively, they're getting better, and they got better with personnel additions at the trade deadline. Denver moves up a spot. Very good defense. Bo Nix had a really nice touchdown pass. It's just I don't fear Denver as a Super Bowl threat. I think that they can win a playoff game, similar to what the Texans were the last couple of years, but I just don't think that they're a Super Bowl threat. But still, they deserve to be in the top 10, as do the Chicago Bears. They move up 5 spots after beating the Eagles. Really good job by Ben Johnson. I know that Mike Vrabel is going to be the guy who probably gets Coach of the Year. Ben Johnson should be right there with him, getting a lot of votes. Tampa Bay moves up 1 spot after defeating the Cardinals at 7-5. Hopefully they can string together a few more wins and get hot going into January. The 49ers, man, 9-4, despite all the injuries that they have or have had on the year, they continue to win games. George Kittle said it after the fact. If he said, all right, if they're going to miss George Kittle, Brock Purdy, Fred Warner, Nick Bosa, Brandon Ayuk, all at different points in the year, but still be 9-4. 49ers fans wouldn't have believed that, but here we are. The Chiefs fall 2 spots at 6-6. Little room for error. They got to win out. Houston jumps up 5 spots, 7-5. Big win over Indianapolis. They get C.J. Stroud back. Defensively, they are a monstrous unit. Houston getting hot at the right time. The Colts getting cold at the wrong time. They dropped drastically. The Colts have not looked the same over the last month. Daniel Jones has become a little bit more prone to turnovers, and now with the injury, there's a lot to be concerned about with the Colts. The Chargers stay put. I didn't really learn anything about them in this win. They beat up a very bad Raiders team. Offensive line-wise, there's still a lot of questions there with them, but still a team that, could make a little bit of noise in January if they get the right matchup. The Jaguars are at 17. They move up 1 spot after defeating the Tennessee Titans and holding them to 3 points. Baltimore really fell, and this might be a little bit of an overreaction, but Lamar Jackson hasn't scored a touchdown in a month. Last 3 games, just a big old goose egg. They couldn't do anything against, I believe, the worst defense in terms of DVOA in the NFL in Cincinnati. Joe Burrow came back, had his way with Baltimore, and now the Ravens at 6-6, going to host Pittsburgh next week. That's a huge game in terms of playoff seeding and what it can mean for the Ravens going forward. Carolina moves up 1 spot after a big win over the Rams. I still don't know what to make of them. They're 7-6, and that's great, but they're not a top 15 team to me. Miami gets a little boost after beating the Saints. Again, they're ending the season on a high note, and that's great to see, but they're not going to be a playoff team. Cincinnati moving up 4 spots. If they win out and get a little bit of help, they could win the AFC North, and that could be very fun. The Steelers tie for the biggest fallers with the Ravens. They dropped 9 spots. That offense is dead in the water. The defense stinks. That is not a good football team right now. They got a game in Baltimore. They got a game on the road against Detroit, a game against a Browns defense that's very good, and then they play Baltimore again. They have a home game against the Dolphins in between all of that. Nothing about the Steelers looks good right now. I know that the Commanders lost, but when you get into this part of the power rankings, it becomes more off vibes than anything. They put up a hell of a fight against Denver. So they move up a little bit. Arizona falls a spot after losing to Tampa Bay. The Jets move up 5 spots after beating the Falcons. Again, big Nick Folk field goal to get the win for the Jets. The Vikings, man, Max Brosmer, as I said, made J.J. McCarthy look like a great quarterback. Hey, look, maybe that was the goal. Maybe that was a little bit of the conspiracy theory. All right, hey, if we put Max Brosmer out there against Seattle, he'll look god-awful. That'll take a little bit of the heat off J.J. McCarthy. That's just my conspiracy theory. But the Vikings are very bad. As are the Falcons, who lost to the Jets. That's not a real team. I think that their head coaching job will be available after this year, and I believe they'll move on from Raheem Morris. The Browns and Saints stay put at 28 and 29. Giants fall 4 spots. Just a lot of dysfunction there. Don't have a head coach right now. Obviously, Mike Kafka, the acting head coach. Abdul Carter getting punished again and benched for the first quarter. Just not a lot to really look forward to right there with the Giants for the rest of this season. The Titans, I moved them up 1 spot, and then I moved the Raiders down. The Raiders are just a bad team. You can put the Raiders and Titans, 31-32, however you want to stack it. But neither of those teams should be above 31. And that is the power rankings going into week 14. Appreciate everybody for tuning in. Again, we are brought to you by FanDuel. Thursday night football this week. What is a Thursday night game? Oh, it's Cowboys-Lions. Actually, a very good matchup this week for Al Michaels to be excited about with Kirk Herbstreit in the booth. Per FanDuel, the Lions are 3-point favorites at home. So I think I'm actually going to pick Dallas. I think that Dallas has gotten hot at the right time. I think Detroit has gotten cold at the wrong time. And this feels like a game that Dallas just continues to steamroll and catches up to Philadelphia in the NFC East. So that'll be a very fun matchup on Thursday. We'll be back on Friday to recap that game. as well as get you set for the entire Week 14 slate. Additionally, with Believe in Steelers to get you set for Steelers and Ravens. So if you're listening as a podcast, please be sure to comment and leave a review. If you're watching on YouTube, please be sure to subscribe. And we will be back later on in the week right here on the Pump Fake. Take care.